So this is going to be the first actual lesson with using the engine. So before we go on, we have another person joining us. Sheikh, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello guys, my name is Hussam Sheikh. You can call me Sheikh. I'm an incoming MSBS student at UNC Chapel Hill. Been working at the lab for about a year now. I mostly work in Unity, so I'm trying to expand on that by learning Unreal. So glad to be here.
Cool. All right. And then Nautica is not with us today because he has an exam. So that's where he's at. All right. So I guess the first thing to talk about is if you guys just go through like the pre-lesson material. So do you guys have any questions about the introduction to Git video that I sent? Yeah. And like, how'd you guys feel about that video?
Yeah, I liked it. I took a class that was specifically on Git last semester.
Oh, cool.
So it was a little bit of review, but I liked how in the beginning he went over kind of like the data structure that Git actually has that you don't really know so much of with this like its interface. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess they didn't have that class when I was there. That would have been nice.
Was it Chris Jordan's 290 or?
Yeah, it was 290.
Oh, gotcha.
I feel like it's still helpful to always hear it because like even after that class I was like, oh, I don't know if I have this, but that was like, yeah, it was good.
Yeah,
reiteration.
Yeah, definitely just a practice thing too.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, so later on, I think in this lesson, I'll talk about kind of how like Git works with Unreal and some just the things to look out for with that. All right, and then the second video is just like that first hour in the engine. Yeah, kind of just that brief overview of like what actually is the Unreal Engine and kind of how to navigate it. Does anyone have any like questions about anything they saw in there? Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, that one. Yeah. So like this lesson, we don't really like have too much to expand on that video. We think it does like a pretty good job just showing like the basics of Unreal. But me and Ben just want to go ahead and show you guys some of the stuff that like what our setup looks like on just kind of some of the small stuff that we do. So I'm going to open up a project on my computer. Do a new share. All right, is that coming through with you guys?
Yeah, or it was until it wasn't.
Yeah, it just closed for a sec, so it like canceled it. There.
All right, there we go.
There we go. So this is kind of like my normal setup. I don't really do terribly too much. So I guess like one of my main things is I always keep like multiple content browsers open, which you can do like window, content browser. I don't have much going on in this project, so I only have two. And I always keep my first one as just like the levels with that filter I think that they showed in the video. This just makes finding like the level I want to jump to a lot easier. And one thing I actually don't have set up here is in the project settings. So you see how when I opened it, it just opened to this like blank untitled level. You can change that, and which I usually do in the project. You go to maps and modes, and you do like editor startup map. So I could do, I think this is the one I've been working on. So that should save. And so now it would open up this level, which is the one I was working on, just making some UI buttons. Yeah.
And just a quick thing there, based off of what Daniel was saying, there's two different panels there. There was the editor startup map, and then there was the, I believe the game mode map or something like that. Essentially, one of them is when you open up the actual engine, and then the other one is when you actually play the game. So
Yeah.
you could have one that you could have like for testing, and then but you actually just want them to see like the actual finished product at the end.
I'm waiting for it to boot back up so I can share it again. Yeah. Okay. Shit. Oh my god. Come on, Zoom. There it is. So I swear it opened up to this. I didn't just switch it while it was not shared. So yeah, I mean that's just like really helpful when you're working on a project to kind of open to where you're used to. Yeah, I don't really have terribly too much to show. That's kind of like my main things. Definitely learning the hotkeys are important. Like W, E, and R are some of like the most important ones, I think, because it like switches how you edit something that you're grabbing. But
those are also standard across a lot of different game development softwares. So whether that's Unreal or Maya or ZBrush in some cases, it's really helpful to learn those hotkeys specifically if you learn any, because those are kind of universal.
yeah. Let's see. The other one I would say that is important are these like developer tools. Like the message log is really helpful when there's like warnings or bugs. When things crash, and then like the output log is pretty helpful too. Yeah. So that's about it for me. If Ben, you want to go ahead and share yours, I wait.
All right, it's saying
Yeah.
host
Yeah.
disabled participant screen sharing.
All right, try now.
All right. Okay. Can you guys see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah,
one
I
of the
can see
first
it.
things that I like to tell everyone whenever I'm teaching Unreal is if you, on any of your blueprints or assets, the first thing is changing from just compile to save on compile always. This is really nice because it saves a step. And if you had forgotten to save your project after compiling or saved your asset after compiling, you know, and your game crash or your computer crash or something like that, you would potentially lose that file, even though it had been compiled. It hadn't been actually saved to the U asset. So that's just a good habit to get into. Saves you a little time and makes you a little bit more secure. The second thing was, if you notice when I created or I opened up that blueprint, it kind of put it in a new tab like this. And I always find that super, super annoying. So one of the things that I like to do is you just go into your, not the project settings, but the editor preferences. So go down to edit, editor preferences, and then immediately the first thing you open up in general appearance, there's this asset editor open location. And by default, it's just set to like default, which I guess just creates a new window. But if you select main window, whenever you open up a thing, it'll automatically be docked to your tab. So just saves like 2 seconds, but.
Yeah, 2 seconds adds up very quickly.
Yeah.
An annoyance.
But those are, I think, the two biggest tips. If you, I guess another thing is there's all these buttons up here in the top right that are really important. So when you're doing like level design and stuff like that for engine, in editor rather, when you're moving stuff around, it kind of snaps. Now this is stuff that was gone over in the video, but I just want to like reiterate because it is really important. A lot of times companies will build things based off of this grid scale and the snapping scale. And so that like pieces might be built out of a size unit like 100. That way it snaps really easily together. You don't have to like try to vertex snap. So just be cognizant of that. You can also disable the snapping just by clicking each of the little snapping buttons here. Yeah, I think that's probably about it. But.
Cool. So, and like the video probably like mentions, this is just like you get better over time and practice, and just becomes a lot more natural moving around in the engine once you do it for a little bit. All right, let's go back to here. Share. Okay, so the next thing, oh, that is the next thing already. the video mentioned this, but I think it needs like a little bit more like explanation and like really drive home is like the file system representation of these projects. So when you open like your project, it's handling a lot of the file creation and all that for you, but it's also good to know that these like files do just live like on disk somewhere. Um, and to kind of understand like the structure that it's creating for you, so you understand like where things are. So stop that share. Start a new one. So this is just like my basic file explorer in Windows. So if we go to where I keep my projects, like the one I was just working on, um, you'll see this like very normal kind of like Unreal project setting or structure where you have like the U project, which is like what you would click to actually open the editor for that project. And then just some of like the basic folders or the content, which is where like everything that you can like add to the engine and like drag and drop, that's where that lives. Um, Plugins, a little bit more advanced, but like if you have like a plugin that you want to add, it could go in here. Source is stuff for the engine, I believe. And then some of the files are like generated when you create a new project. So for example, the intermediate and saved are two folders that are created like when you open a new project. And so the intermediate folder just holds like basically cached files that the engine needs to run faster, that it has to compute. But if you save it to disk, you have it for later. So like, for example, when you open like a project and you get that like pop up where it's like compiling shaders, those shaders, I believe, are written somewhere into this intermediate file or a folder. And so like that way, the next time you open the engine, it doesn't have to like completely recompute that. But it's important to know that like you can delete the intermediate file and like your project will be fine. It can recompute it. And a lot of the times you actually like when you run into problems, like deleting the intermediate file can actually help. And is often just like how to fix things. Let's see. The save folder has a bunch of like logs and stuff. So like this is like the output log from the last time I opened the project. This is helpful to know because like if your engine is crashing and you can't even like open it, you want to go to like the logs and see like what's crashing it. So let's.
It also has the auto saves folder. So whenever you see that little auto saves in the bottom right corner, that it's in that saved folder as well. Now, the way that, and this isn't something that was also touched on in the video, but the way that auto saves work in Unreal is you don't just have a central project like you would in like Maya or something like that, where everything is housed inside this project. Unreal kind of splits everything into like these different U assets that it individually saves. So whenever it auto saves those individual assets that have most recently changed. So if you were working on some new asset and your computer crashed or something while you were working on a project and you wanted to try to get some of your auto saves back, you would likely still have all of those auto saves before from all those different assets, if that makes sense. You would just probably lose the ones afterwards.
Okay. So, yeah, just some more recap. Let's do another share of the engine. So like the video talked about, when you create things in the engine, it gets created like actually on disk in your computer. So if I make a new folder, call it just demo, and I make a new actor in this photo or folder, and I save that, and then I do another share back to my file system, and we go to content, we'll see a demo folder and a demo U asset. So Unreal uses like U assets for basically most things. and this U asset just contains like a bunch of extra like kind of metadata that helps create that representation in the engine. Can you guys, is it just my file system, or is it, can you see the engine too with the screen share?
Just the file system.
Just the file. Oh, come on, Zoom. All right, stop share. So screen share. All right, can you see the engine now?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, so like that's like, you see this like thumbnail, some of this extra metadata, it's all stored as a U asset, because these assets are designed to be worked with in Unreal, and it just makes things a lot easier on the back end for them. But this does come as a trade-off, because these files are not like normal text files that you would expect in like coding projects. These are binary files. And this really comes into play when we get to using source control like Git. Yeah, so I can just talk about it here. So that's like kind of why I wanted to have that video. Have you guys watched that like introduction to Git to really understand like the background of it? I think it really drives home that Git was a tool designed for text editors and for like merging text files. Really, it's not designed to work specifically with binary files. I think this is important to understand, because like when you first use it, Git with Unreal, you kind of like, it doesn't work the same as with other projects because they're mostly binary files. So when Git does merges on text files, it can obviously like merge the lines, and sometimes you have to manually do it, but that's what it's designed to do. But you can't naturally like merge binary files. So if there's a difference in one file and you try to merge it with another binary, with like another branch, you can't do a merge. You have to take one or the other. And so this becomes important with using Git for collaboration, because if two people are working on the same U asset on different branches, when they go to merge it, you only get one or the other. You don't get to share that work. And I can do a quick demonstration of that. So let me stop this share. Let me go to a different project. I don't want to mess that one up.
Is there a different version control that handles binary files better?
Yes.
Yes.
And we use that in the lab for most of our like main projects. We use Perforce. We'll have like a whole lesson on that later in the like series. But it has its trade-offs. It works better when you're working on like a big project with multiple people, but it doesn't work as well with kind of what we want to do with this training, where we're distributing more files and everyone kind of has their own copy. So yeah, we'll get to that later, but it's slightly different. Let me just pull up this Git bash. Okay. Okay, so that share. Okay, you guys see my terminal?
Not really, actually. It looks like it's sharing like a sliver of it.
Oh, there we go. I had
There
to
we
go
go.
back to the other screen. Okay, so this is just the Git bash, shell. So I'm just working on one of the assignments right now. I'm on the master branch. So let's say I do that. I make a new branch from master. So let's say I make like 2 branches off of master, and all right. So in this second one, I haven't made any changes. So these two branches could represent like two people working on like different features or just working on different parts. So if I come, and you can't see my editor, but I have the project open, and let's say, okay. It's kind of annoying that, let me see if I can share my entire screen. Can you guys see like my whole screen now?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see the editor now?
Yep.
Okay, this is gonna work much better. Okay. So in this branch, let's see. Yeah, so I just added a print string to this level. So now if I do status, we'll see that there's a change on the enums map. So don't do what I just did. That's actually, I should not do that. Adding all the files can get really dangerous because they're obviously binaries. I'm only doing that because I know I only have one file. Changed. So let's merge this into master. What did I call that? So you'll see it does one file change. Usually when you do text, it'll talk about like how many inserts and deletes, but you'll see it literally just changes it from one file to the other. So now, let's exit that. If I check out the other branch, temp one, and I reopen this project. So hopefully it'll be the old version without the print statement. Yeah. So so obviously since this branch hasn't been updated, or it was branched off a master before that commit, it doesn't have the print statement that I added. So let's go ahead and add this. Actually, no. Yeah. So watch this. Hello. So let's say that like I even had something. I think that's what I had as the last print statement, but something like similar. Okay. So now obviously I've changed this file, so let's add it. Yeah, so now we have that committed. And this is something really important to see. Oh, I don't think I had saved it. Let me just re-add it to show. Okay. So we have it modified and there's no new changes since the last commit. But watch, even if I do something as simple as like accidentally move that box. Oh, you got to save the file. It registers that as a completely new change. So that's why I was saying you have to be really careful with these files because like even accidentally moving a box will cause Git to track that change. And so you could accidentally override someone else's change just by like accidentally moving the box. You have to be really careful when you're adding to your commits. If you're working on working with someone, that like you're only committing the files that you actually made changes to that you want committed. It won't like just nicely merge them. So to demonstrate that, let's add this last commit or add this last change. commit it. I don't know. And then let's go back to master. And then merge this temp1 branch. Yeah. I'll just show you what happened. So you see it's like both modified and it can't merge them. So if we just add it. I believe that when you just do that, it takes the change from the branch that you're trying to merge from. So it should have overwritten what was on master before. Yep. So, I mean, this is just to show that you got to be careful because they're binary files. Let's see. Yeah. So just be careful if you're working on a project with someone and you're using Git as the source control, to really be careful about like what you're committing, what you're merging, what files you actually changed. Cool. Does anyone have questions about that? All right. If not, I think that's all we have for this lesson. Yeah. So, stop sharing.